welcome to episode 2 of my Azalea series. In this episode, I'm going to be covering the Oldhim matchup. So it's going to be just covering some key points right off, and then I've got 2 games of VODs to review. I haven't actually VOD reviewed them fully on my own, so I'm sure I'll be catching quite a few mistakes from when I played them out, but both of them were super close fatigue games. So I just want to be able to talk through a lot of the decision points and what goes into planning out the long game in a fatigue matchup. For those of you who are already familiar with the matchup, this is going to traditionally... Wait, let me make sure my mic's good. This is going to traditionally be a matchup where our biggest fear is fatigue. If we play a pure tempo game into them, we will have a health lead for the most part. It's really difficult for Oldhim to actively mid-range you better than you can mid-range. The problem is that if he leans into that defensive role, you're going to run out of cards before killing him because he just blocks so effectively. So yeah, going into it, most of the equipment's pretty straightforward. Perch Grapplers versus Snapdragons is one I'm still slightly on the fence about, but I think it is still just Perch Grapplers. Yeah, the Snapdragons sometimes is difficult to use effectively against Oldhim due to the ability, or due to the ice react. So a lot of the turns where you'd want to do it would be like a Rain Razor's turn where you fire an arrow, you've got one arrow left in hand, you're going to snaps, load the arrow and fire it, but you hit snaps and all of a sudden they just ice react you and you can't anymore. So it's hard to fully extend those play lines the way you would want to. So the 2 block on Perch Grapplers often just gives you the flexibility of this being an additional card somewhere. Whether that's saving you a card blocking, or even as simple as there might be a turn where this is going to be good, but I can't afford the extra resource from the Frostbite tax, so it gets thrown in front of a Winter's Wail and saves you pitching an additional card for the Frostbite. Yeah, and then the rest of the deck, I guess I'll discuss what comes out, is just the That All You Gots. Obviously, there's no real targets for That All You Got. It is just a yellow 3 block that also can't block CNC. So it ends up being clunky more often than needing the additional block cards in the deck. Everything else goes in, but we've got a lot of the cards are kind of there as vanilla damage. Or not all, some. Namely is Sleep Dart. Sleep Dart on hit is almost entirely irrelevant. There's one minor application, which would be a Perch Grappler's Sleep Dart line where they let the Sleep Dart hit and then they can't ice react you anymore. But I've never had that come up, and I can't see it coming up either. There's no reason why they wouldn't just ice react you on the Sleep Dart if it already had go again. Yeah, so a lot of it is just raw damage. Every card's going to have individual roles at different points. Another debated card in the matchup, I guess, would be Sigil of Solace. While it doesn't help you push, it actually has a lot of strong applications for maintaining tempo, because the way we approach this matchup is not strictly make sure to force damage to always dominate. Because if you do that, Oldhim will just crack back, and you're taking inefficient play patterns, like I was talking about in the previous video. Taking inefficient play patterns to force damage, you're going to get out mid-ranged if you do that. Because he's getting stuck with a hand that he's got to play out, and he'll just do better things with his hands. So Sigil of Solace is an important card for kind of maintaining tempo, because whenever you cast it, you obviously gain health, which then lets you use your health as a resource to hold more 5-card hands. Another of my favorite interactions with this is arsenaling it, or holding it to arsenal as your last card. So occasionally you'll get them to ice react you, and then you get to play Sigil, and all of a sudden their ice react did nothing, and now this Sigil of Solace stopped them from hammering you and healed 3 health. So you get 1 card for 7 value or 8 value, depending on how much we value the Frosty Hammer. That's 4 or 5. So being able to set up a turn with Sigil as the last card in your hand, very powerful. Or even there's also a lot of applications where you fire and you have 2 cards in hand, Sigil and one other. And now your opponent goes, oh, they've got 2 cards, so there's no reason to ice react them. Then you get to Sigil after the attack resolves, and then still arsenal the card and be perfectly efficient. And if they ice react you, you can just put one of the cards on top and be fine. But this lets you make sure that you get your 5-card hand, because an Oldhim is almost never going to react to you, he's never going to ice react you when you already have 5 cards in, or when you already have 2 cards at the end of your turn. So Sigil helps us get those 5-card hands without being inefficient and helping us playing around ice react. And like I said, it also is a card that when you have tempo, you get to use it as a card to gain health, so that it kind of banks it for later as a card you don't have to block with later when you actually want to be pressuring and not blocking. Seek and Destroy is another very important card in the matchup, and that's because a lot of Oldhim's ability to stop our big turns is by using Crown of Seeds. In essence, whenever we go for a spike turn, just assuming everything in his hand is a 3-block, just a blue 3-block, let's just say, when he's got Rampart and Crown of Seeds, he can pitch a blue and then block 12 from hand if he absolutely had to into a spike turn, which means he's looking at least at 14 block. If we break the chain, it becomes 16 block, which is really hard to actually push damage through. So a lot of our turns where we push damage need to be when he doesn't have an arsenal. So that either comes on the back of we had a big turn previously and he decided to forgo the arsenal in order to minimize the damage taken and hope we didn't have a big follow-up turn. The other is forcing through a Seek and Destroy and then setting up a 5-card hand to push through his 4-card hand. So Seek and Destroy on hit is one of the more powerful ones in the matchup. Do be warned, though, when you do connect a Seek and Destroy, oftentimes they are going to crack back with everything they have. So if you dominate a Seek and Destroy for 8, and they go, okay, I'll use 2 cards to block 5, take 3, and now they got 3 cards left, like, you might just get CNC Tunic pummeled and have a bad time. So just be aware that Seek and Destroy is going to often demand them throwing everything they've got back at you. Red in the Ledger obviously does almost nothing in the matchup. It's almost as vanilla as Sleep Dart, slightly less, but pretty close. Our real MVPs in the matchup are going to be Remorseless, Headshot, and Fatigue Shot, for the 1-cost arrows at least. Fatigue Shot often not as much if they're going fully into the fatigue plan, purely because if they're going full fatigue, they're not planning on actually doing much more than hammer most of the time anyways. So it doesn't do much, but it does stop them from pivoting if you're afraid of them cracking back. So dominated Fatigue Shot can actually be pretty strong. Headshot, if they're trying to block you, just present the highest damage number. Headshot's great. Remorseless has applications more in the early game for locking out D-reacts from Arsenal. A tall dominated Remorseless is one of your best ways of actually pushing damage, because it doesn't get punished by a D-react from Arsenal. And then we've obviously got Drill Shot. I guess we'll see it in one of these games. Drill Shot is very important if you can connect it early. The earlier this lands, the more value it kind of has by stopping the Rampart. And it's going to often push them to either be less efficient with their blocks or have to try and swing back more, because they can't. Like, pitching a card for Crown of Seeds feels real bad if you don't have Rampart. The other effect, not only that, from hitting a Drill Shot, is the fact that it opens up more flexibility in your play lines. So when they have Rampart, if you go like Rabble into, or let's just say, we'll pitch a yellow, load a Headshot. Or no. Pitch a yellow, load Fatigue Shot. Then play Rabble, reveal a Headshot on top. If they have Rampart up, and they block with Rampart, and like a 3-block, we may want to dominate this Headshot, but we'd be closing the chain, and they've got one floating most of the time. So all of a sudden, using Azalea to try and dominate a Headshot is giving them their Rampart back, which means now they can block the entire next hit with a 3-block. There's also applications like E-Strike out of Arsenal for 5 go again. All of a sudden gets a lot worse when they have Rampart. So if Drill Shot connects, it opens up the option of breaking the chain, which is, yeah, really, really relevant in order to make sure we can actually find those highest damage turns or find dominate on the end of a turn. Or even like our Rain Razor Bolt and Shots lines can be a lot worse against Rampart. So finding a drill shot early opens up a lot of that flexibility. It's not an end-all be-all. I've won plenty of games against Oldhims where I don't hit a drill shot at all. I've also lost games where I have hit the drill shot. But it's definitely a very powerful thing to be able to nullify their Rampart. The other thing is kind of like evaluating the power of cards. As the game goes on, you're obviously going to have to block at some point. And understanding what card you're blocking with and when is a big thing. So like understanding, should I be blocking with my Knock the Death Whistle or my Blue Headshot, if you've got those as your two options. Most of the time, I think you should be blocking with the Knock in that situation. Reason being is that Knock doesn't actually deal damage. It can be a tool for dealing damage, but this essentially on its own does 0 damage. So if you're running low on damage in deck, as it gets later, this Knock probably isn't doing as much as just having a 4 that you could dominate. Obviously, this needs to be attached to another buff. Ideally, Memorial Ground is used in the late game to push through your last couple closing hits. Occasionally, you have to cast them earlier just because they clump up and you just need to use them for tempo. Or rather, they show up at weird times, but Memorial is another one that is there just as a way of recurring damage. But yeah, for the most part, you're playing pretty much a tempo game and trying to find windows to force through damage. But you do have to play pretty heavy into the tempo plan in order to make sure that happens. Yeah, and I'm sure there will be a lot of other things that I'll remember or have mention of during these games, but I want to just jump into these VODs. That's not an Oldhim game. This is from the first stream I did on this channel, which I thought this Oldhim game was really, really good. Or at least I was happy with how it went. So yeah, it looks like I'm going first. And yeah, we'll dive right into it. So going first, I loaded the headshot. I'm just going to take the blind Azalea. Obviously, just firing a headshot for no reason isn't going to do much. I don't want to throw these buffs in order to fire the headshot, because just 12 damage on turn 0 is not good. It needs to be dominated. So actually, I think this first line was wrong. It's debatable. I think there's a pretty strong argument to use the take aim, reload, cross wrap, opt, and try and find a dominate. But the problem is if you miss on the next 2 cards for an arrow, you're down your take aim. But I think the ceiling is high enough, because if I hit, all of a sudden I'm looking at like between like 10 and 12 dominate on turn 0, which almost always pushes damage. And I think that is worth the risk to give up 1 buff for that. So yeah, in this case, I think it should have been take aim. But either way, I end up with the Sink Below an Arsenal. We draw into this. And notably, I have not spent any cards. So that play pattern there put everything back in the deck. I put my Fatigue and my Headshot back in for later. And my opponent just goes Channel Lake Frigid, which my thought process when this Channel Lake Frigid comes down is I want to get through the Channel Lake Frigid without leaking too much damage, while also not losing too many of my resources that I want in my late game. So I need to find a way to keep these buffs. So likely the play pattern here is going to be pitching a buff, which will go next to that Fatigue shot and whatever, in order to sink below one or the other buff. Yeah. And that way I'm not actually using any of my buffs now. And yeah, this was a mistake. Man, I'm bad at the game. I should have sank below the release. And I believe during the stream I even mentioned that I messed that up, that I should have sank it. The other reason is I needed to find a yellow here to make sure I could still get an arsenal. So by sinking, I would have had 2 chances to find a yellow instead of just 1. So I am going to just fire the red in the ledger kind of as a small tempo line, because while he's got Channel Lake Frigid out, if he wants to pitch 2 ice cards, it gets a lot easier when he's got a 5-card hand. If I just represent something like red in the ledger, there's a chance he either leaks damage to try and keep the channel out, or I get 2 cards and then he can't keep the channel. Obviously I'm rewarded here. And yeah, we get to fire the red in the ledger for 5 and arsenal a react. The plan here is to get 2 cards out of his hand and then have the channel die. It's the goal, at least. Notably, the bottom of my deck, I've just pitched 4 non-arrows in a row. It went... Actually, what is my pitch? Pitch was, I think, fatigue shot. No, actually, technically, headshot went to the bottom first, then fatigue shot. And then the next was take aim. Oh, never mind, I didn't sync this, so that didn't go there. Now it'll be Rain Razor's Memorial. So it's just 3 in a row, but I do need to be cognizant of that. The nice part is with your arsenal, you can often play through even you can play through 5 non-arrows in a row. So as long as I don't send 5 non-arrows in a row to the bottom, I should be safe. And that's also, you have to draw it at the perfect spacing. If you draw them mixed in with the other stuff, like most of the time, it's not going to matter. Just be careful of pitching too many non-arrows in a row. He swings the hammer. Notably, he pitches a red staunch response here as well. Something to pay attention to for when we get to second cycle, that he's not or that it'll be coming back around. And now here we're presented with the decision point of, do I want to use Fate Foreseen on this now? Or do I just want to pitch the Fate Foreseen next turn? And... oh, that's interesting. Because I've just discussed having too many non-arrows in a row pitched to the bottom. And now all of a sudden I'm looking at like Fate Foreseen pitching the Seek, and then taking a turn where I'm pitching the Read the Glide Path, and all of a sudden that becomes 5 non-arrows in a row. So I think that is what I end up doing, although... no, because when I play the Fate Foreseen, I get the chance to look for an arrow to try and send to the bottom. Yeah, so actually I think that's fine. I just really want to find an arrow here to send to the bottom. And the other thing is I'm pitching a Seek and Destroy, which is, again, one of our stronger tools in the late game. Or actually just one of our stronger tools. But I was looking at a hand where I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make a connect, and realistically probably wasn't connecting this Remorseless. So I said I'd send the Seek below the Seek and Destroy to the bottom in order to make sure that my second cycle had kind of that gas in there. Now, this is great to send to the bottom because now I've mixed an arrow in with my pitch. Obviously, it's not the best arrow, but it's still an arrow. And then this is just kind of a bread and butter play line. 2 cards for 8 and getting to Arsenal. I'm very okay with playing out the Sigil of Solace, leaving it on top, because I have the space to do it. It's a reasonably slow turn, and there's some chance that he tries to ice react me. But I think more than likely it's going to be Crown of Seeds, Rampart, and 2 3 blocks, and then swing back with a hammer. Oh, okay, so we get 3 blocks. Just fine. Just Arsenal the Sigil. So we're burning through our D-reacts pretty quickly, but this is another great bread and butter line. So notably, I put that to the bottom there because I do sort of want to find an extender, and against almost any other deck, I probably would have left it there, and the line just would have been Rabble, play the Sigil, pitch the yellow, load the Sleep Dart, draw the Sink, Arsenal the Sink, represent 9 damage, heal 3, and Arsenal a Sink. The problem against Oldhim, though, is if you lead with a Rabble, and he blocks with Rampart, all of a sudden he gets to block 4 off of his Crown of Seeds and Rampart, which means he gets like very clean blocks on that turn, and you just almost never push any damage. It's just way too efficient for him. So what that means is I want to Rabble after loading the Sleep Dart. So I wanted to look for a way of extending the turn off of the top. Again, nothing great. Oh, I do still lead with the Rabble here. I should not be. Yeah, leading with the Rabble was wrong there. This is fine. There was the discussion between pitching or not. And the main reason I pitched was just in case I hit like a good arrow on top, that I could Azalea and Tunic dominate. But more than likely, I'm just going to be arsenaling this Sleep Dart after this. Man, I was actually pretty proud of this game until then. Oh, and so we do see me pivot that kind of discussed playland that I was talking about. And the reason is that there was the Rain Razors on top. So that line I mentioned, I would be, oh, and he didn't block. So I would be arsenaling a Sleep Dart and drawing a Rain Razors. And I'm drawing into a Rain Razors on a turn where he didn't block, which means he wants to keep this hand. As soon as I see no block on the Rabble, that tells me that there's a pretty high risk of something like a CNC Pummel, or even just any kind of major disruption. And I know that I would have Rain Razors in that hand. And so I don't want to have Rain Razors if he's going to crack back hard. And also, if he says he doesn't want to block, I'm going to throw more damage and see if he'll leak it. Because if he's committing to no blocking to like CNC Pummel, all of a sudden this is really awkward for him. Because he's got to decide if he's going to... or what he's going to do. Okay, so the read there is that he was going to try and Spinal me. Yeah, he was going to try and Spinal me. Potentially even pummel it off the Arsenal, but he decided not to, after I threatened 5 more damage. So he kind of like pivoted between I'll take the damage and swing back to I'm not going to take the damage. Which is fine. Here, all of these cards are way too premium. You want to be careful about blocking with your red arrows, just in general, in this matchup, because they are kind of the key to a lot of your efficient turns, and if you throw them away too carelessly, you're gonna have a rough time. I think the other game I'm reviewing, I got stuck in situations where I had to block with a few too many of them, and that makes the game much more difficult. So, as annoying as this Frostbite may be, I need to just take the damage. I can't afford to throw away any of these cards. The other thing to note is I've just pitched a Rain Razors on the previous turn. So now, or I pitched a Rain Razors and a Reed Glide Path. So if I can find a way to get these Bolton shots to the bottom, I'm pretty happy about it. And yeah, that way is simply... Oh, this is interesting. Normally I like arsenaling a Seek and Destroy. Or normally I like arsenaling a red Bolton shot. I'm curious. Okay, so I did decide to hold the Bolton shot. I think there was a pretty strong argument to pitch the Bolton shot here instead. Because of the Rain Razors at the bottom. These are all very high damage cards in my deck. So again, I can't afford to block that. And I've fallen a little bit behind on tempo, which is a bit disappointing. There's no great way to make this work. I have to just play this yellow Reed the Glide Path. Oh, and I do end up getting that red Bolton shot to the bottom. which is, yeah, quite good. Oh, I opted another blue Bolton shot, which I've just pitched blue Bolton shot. So I think this one's debatable, but I do end up sending it to the bottom, knowing that there is still a Rain Razors down there. So here, it's going to be E-Strike for 5 into Fatigue Shot. The question just becomes, how hard am I extending? And what do I want in Arsenal? So I opted to try and extend out the hand fully. And you'll note that I played the buff first. So playing the buff first gets punished quite hard by Ice React. Or sorry, it gets punished very hard by Blizzard. However, it plays around breaking the chain on the Rampart and also plays around getting Ice Reacted. So the plan is I'm going to come in with a 15 damage turn and hope that something leaks. And yeah, I had to do it that way in order to not break the chain on the Rampart. Yeah, also notably, the mouse movement is past me, not me, right now. But yeah, the risk of Blizzard here was actually pretty painful, but I think we had seen him pitch another Blizzard and play one. And unfortunately, you can never actually just play around everything. You've got to pick and choose what you play around. So, yep. We get a big Fatigue Shot. We only leaked 2, but he went ahead and got rid of his Arsenal, which this kind of sucks. Yeah. So I am gonna... Oh, that wasn't Frosty. Never mind, we're good. Yeah, we'll load there. And I did get punished a little bit. I was hoping to draw an extender, but now I'm gonna get stuck with a dead card in hand. Which, rewinding mentally, that could have been better to just fire the Sleep Dart. But I think I want to represent the Rain Razors here. That Ice React was strange. Now, I do put the Drill Shot on top. Like this. Yeah. The only weird thing about dominating that Drill Shot was that now I've sent my other Drill Shot to the bottom, and I want to connect a Drill Shot early. So I've taken away like one of my most threatening arrows, which is not ideal. Going into this next turn, I know it's going to be middling, so I'm okay just holding the Sigil. And I send away a buff for later on in the game. We're just going to try and find a Dominate here. No luck. And I decide not to play around the Ice React. Again, it's debatable. See, my immediate impression there would have been that I should have... No, there was no Rain Razors pitched recently. So I think holding onto the Bolton Shot's reasonable. Never mind. Notably, second Blizzard pitched. Possibly third, I'm not 100% sure actually. Chokeslam into a handful of buffs, not great. Not get. I think about this one for a little bit. So I'm gonna end up throwing 6 in front. The question is, what are the lowest value cards in the deck, or like as far as actually closing out the game? And Knock is surprisingly low because it doesn't actually generate value on its own. It only gives the Dominate keyword. So oftentimes it feels, and it also messes up my pitch stack, which felt has been reasonable. So it came down to, did I want the Bolton Shot or the Deadeye? And I think the Deadeye is a stronger tool for closing out the game. So we are going to try and find a dominate, just to hopefully push a little bit of damage here. It's not a great turn. It's 3 cards for 8 dominate, but ideally it's pushing at least some damage. The next thing to take note of is what the pacing of the game looks like. He's basically a third of the way through his health, and I'm because I'm counting armor as well. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 armor here. So he basically started on 45, and he's taken, and he's got 30 left. So he's taken 15 and has 30 health remaining. And we are almost exactly a third of the way through the deck. We're slightly further than that. So we're ever so slightly behind on pacing. However, a lot of the cards we used early were things like D-reacts. So that is something to be aware of. So there on that opt, I had drawn all of these arrows. And what I want to find here is an extender, so I can arsenal the bolt and shot. So that's why the fatigue shot goes to the bottom. So we're going to pitch load the headshot. No extender. We're going to fire it. So what I'm doing here is if you haven't noticed for this game, I don't remember exactly what happened in these games. Also, that was a weird ice react. I don't remember what happened in these games, and I don't have the audio, but I'm commentating based on just evaluating the situation. So there will be times where I will explain a line and then realize that that's not what I did in the past. Then I'll try and figure out the difference. But for the most part, a lot of these lines are pretty straightforward. I think, at least, with enough repetition. This hand, the bolt and shot doesn't line up well, and I don't have buffs. Oh, this... I don't know why I'm pausing. I'm probably going to sit here and pause because this is an interesting hand. I never want to block with a red headshot unless I absolutely have to. It feels real bad. It's definitely the best arrow in this matchup. Throwing away red in the ledger also feels bad. Not blocking doesn't feel great because I can't use this full hand. None of this actually feels good. I could see just throwing the knock. Or, yeah, just take it, I guess. Makes sense. I did not end up pausing long. So, Seek and Destroy is our best buff in the deck in this matchup. So, as much as I would like to not use it this way, I think I'm going to need to leave it on top. And then we'll Azalea it in. Then there's another discussion point here. So I leave it on top to Azalea it in. Okay, wait. That would be Azalea, bring it to Arsenal, play it, pitch load, in which case there's an argument to like play Memorial Ground for Ravenous Rebel after I Azalea. Oh, interesting. I do it first. Oh, okay, so I do it for the E-Strike. See, I don't actually like this. Because now I'm going to be breaking the chain and giving him extra value off the Rampart. I like the Azalea. Grab the Seek, play Seek, pitch knock. Or sorry, Memorial. Pitch knock, load headshot, draw, Rabble. And then go Rabble into headshot for 9 without breaking the chain. And then Arsenal the red in the ledger. Yeah, because I get screwed by this ice react. He also didn't block with Rampart. I actually don't get screwed that bad on this ice react. But yeah. This line was definitely a lot more susceptible to ice react. But he didn't use the Rampart. So I'm going to go ahead and just Tunic. Because I never actually want to Arsenal this headshot. Yeah, this could have been... I threatened 11 on this line using E-Strike. I guess I saved a buff. Whereas the other line would have threatened 13 without breaking the chain. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, this hand sucks. I mean, it's manageable. But yeah, this hand's not great. And then I'm definitely going to activate Death Dealer here to get rid of one of them. It's probably the Razors. And the reason you pitch the Razors here is he's coming in with a 4-card hand. So I'm not anticipating being able to use like a big 5-card hand next turn. So I need to block 6 here. The easy solution is there. It's like some small discussion of the Perch Grapplers, but I don't think I can justify it. So here I'm just going to try and find an arrow on top if I can. Now, I think I might actually be coming up to my pitch soon. So this could be... No, not quite. Yeah, we just find an 8 dominate, so we'll just take it. But yeah, I think I should be coming up to my pitch soon, which... This is not the first time through the game, and I still can't remember the pitch fully. But I'm taking note here. I think that after this hit, I think I'm okay. As far as like pacing. Because I'm basically halfway through the deck. And he should hopefully take 3 here, go to 18. Which means he's actually on 23 of 45. Okay, 19. Yeah. Ooh, and this hurts. Really don't like blocking with headshot. Yeah, he's on 18 now. It's not fused though. So, as I was mentioning before, in this matchup, you're usually going to be at a health lead. If it's going normally. It's usually a pretty small one, but... Although I guess with his armor, I'm not actually at that much of a health lead, but I'm at a small health lead here. So I do have a little bit of flexibility on where I take damage. But the thing is, obviously, you don't want to throw away your health, because when you draw a hand that you need to be able to use your health as a resource, you want to have that health. So this probably ends up being headshot, fatigue shot, Perch Grapplers. And then come back for 6 and an arsenal. Oh, I just hate blocking with red headshot. Oh, interesting. I do take the on hit. Oh no, I don't. Oh no, I do. Okay, always rewarded. But yeah, that was a mistake. I was supposed to block with the Perch Grapplers. Okay, so actually no, this should be my pitch, right? Because yeah, at the start of the game I pitched headshot, fatigue shot, take aim, rain razors. Which means that rain razors was supposed to go with this next hand of Bolton shots. Bolton shot? No, next card's Memorial. And then like yellow Bolton. And I don't remember past there. No, Memorial blue Bolton into like a Seek. It's a bad hand. Yeah. Memorial blue Bolton Seek. Okay, so yeah, that rain razors was not actually pitched properly. because I wasn't able to connect it with other Bolton shots. So now I'm going to try and do it on this next one. I take 8 there, partly because this hand blocks terribly, but the other thing is he was going down to no arsenal, which means... actually, let me dive into that really quick. So looking at that hand, I could have pitched the yellow reed, load the arrow, seek memorial, and then 8 dominate, like, actually, in this case, it would be a headshot, 9 dominate, headshot, and get an arsenal. I guess there is a small discussion for fatigue over it. But you do see, because of kind of how the pacing's going, I'm about halfway through his health, and I'm a little over halfway through my deck, and I'm not that confident in my stack. I choose to forgo the arsenal in order to use Tunic and the Sink Below as the pitch cards, or rather Tunic plus the card I draw as my pitch cards, and forgo the arsenal just for 2 extra damage. And the other thing is this Read the Glide Path gives me the opportunity to not have to use the Memorial, so I could just arsenal the Memorial, possibly. So yeah, headshot for versus fatigue is definitely debatable here. And the reason is that I'm on 15, and if I strand him with a 3-card hand under Seek and Destroy, he's very likely to want to swing a big attack. So fatigue is probably the safer one. But the big thing is I just want this Seek and Destroy to connect. Unfortunately, I remember this part of the stream. I was talking about it as the game was going, and I said I get blown out here by the red staunch regardless, which actually, if we remember correctly, I watched him pitch a red staunch early on. And I think this is it, because we should be getting to our pitch about the same time. Okay, so I got not great, but like semi-functional, and with a Rain Razors, which I've forgotten on this replay how my pitch looks, but I think there might be another Rain Razors, or sorry, I meant Bolton as the next card. I wasn't sure about next, but I knew it was coming up soon. I think that Seek and Destroy might be wrong. And the reason I don't like that Seek and Destroy is now if I play Rain Razors... Oh, it's weird. Okay, so this is a weird decision point. Because if I play the Bolton shot, it's telegraphed that I have the Rain Razors. And then I play the Rain Razors, he more than likely is going to have a plan in order to stop that. So then I have to use my Bullseye Bracers if I want to fire another arrow. Whereas this line, if I play it this way and he blocks 6 and I Rain Razors over the top, I can potentially connect the Seek and Destroy on hit, and then he Ice Reacts me after. If he Earth Reacts, then it doesn't hit, and that's fine, because then I can still Racers. I don't know, it's weird. I think holding this the Seek and Destroy was better. It gives me less margin to get punished by the Ice React, and also makes the break point, or it makes it 10 on the second attack, which would be harder for him to block. It would be 5 into 10. Yeah. So here's another interesting decision point. Because because I think I screwed that first part up by playing the Bolton, or by playing the Seek and Destroy. He's just said, yeah, I'm going to let a Seek and Destroy hit. So there's no reason for me to play this Rain Razors here. If I play the Rain Razors, he's going to Ice React me, and I'm going to, oh, and even potentially Staunch, like a blue or red Staunch in response. If I play the Rain Razors there, then I get kind of blown out. And I only get 2 value out of this Rain Razors when I want more. So if he's going to let that hit, I'm not going to react and then give him another window to react. I'm going to make him react first. So if he has something like a Staunch, I'll have to play it first. And he chose not to react. And so now I'm very confused, because he just let the Seek and Destroy connect, which in hindsight should probably have been a bit more telegraphed to me that he is planning a big crackback. Which means I want to reload this bolt and shot, and the dream... Oh, I should be using cross trap. The dream here is to find an arrow on top to dominate, so then I get to Azalea and send the bolt and shot and pitch the Rain Razors together again for the next pass. I don't know why I didn't cross trap there. Probably because I was streaming and I play a bit worse while streaming. It ended up being a bolt and shot. And okay, so here, yeah, so it ended up being a bolt and shot, which would not have been as good, but that's fine. If I opted the bolt and shot, I probably would have bottomed it and then blind Azalea. It's greedy, but I think I would have blind Azalea, in which case I would have gotten rewarded really hard by the E-Strike. So on that second bolt and shot, he decided to take 4. While already having been hit by Seek and Destroy, which tells me that he needs to use every single card in his hand here, or that he's going to use every single card in his hand here. So now when he pitches 2 cards and comes in with Spinal, and leaves Tunic and a remaining card, that means that last card in his hand is either a non-block that he couldn't block with last turn, or a pummel. If it was a non-block, and it would only be Blizzard or Heart. Heart he would have pitched and blocked with one of the other 2 cards. Blizzard he would have played. So the only card that could be in his hand right now, assuming he's playing efficiently, is a pummel. Which means if I block 2 cards on Spinal, I get pummeled, lose a card, and can't have go again. So my options here are block with 1 card and E-Strike for 7, or block with 4 cards. Blocking with 1 card, I take 10. That doesn't sound fun. Blocking with 4 cards, I take 1. And because if I block 3 cards, he pummels me, I lose the last card anyways. If I want to turn next turn, it's block with 1 card and take 10. And taking 10 to E-Strike back for 7 seems really bad. Because of the Seek and Destroy, that card in his hand is going away. So if I block 12, he's put in the position of, do I pummel for 1 damage or lose my pummel? And he's going to lose his pummel. Yep, it was the red pummel, as we can see in his discard here. Yeah, I'm just going to clear my arsenal here. I don't know that it's actually correct, but going into a turn where he has 4 cards and I'm on 11 with the Rain Razors in arsenal just feels like a recipe for death. Yeah, because we ended up getting 2 cards out of that, which is quite nice. So here I'm in a situation where it is frosty, but I can't really afford to do anything about it because I can't block with buffs. Sigil I don't want to block with. Headshot is my only arrow. So like we have to take that and we have to play through it. So we're gonna pitch that. There's like some discussion to blind Azalea here. But I go ahead and play kind of a safer line. Because the nice thing is he is at 10, so even if he does have the cards to pressure me, he can't really just face tank a turn anymore. Obviously this turn he could technically, but yeah, this game state's not looking good. Off of the what's it called? Yeah, off of that staunch onto my dominated fatigue, that really hurt my pacing because I was really planning on hitting that. So here we get the frostbite. That's fine. Okay, this is actually quite nice. Interesting. There was an argument to dominate that bolt and shot. No, yeah, okay. That's an issue. So top of my deck was bolt and shot. Reloaded a bolt and shot. I had these 2 in hand. If I dominate the bolt and shot, I'm putting this bolt and shot to the bottom, which would be near-ish to a Rain Razors. However, this turn was already looking like it was going to be like 12 damage with an on hit. So if I leave that Bolton on top, it lets me draw into it immediately and arsenal it. Man, I'm already losing my voice. I was planning on recording multiple of these videos in a day, and I just don't think I can do more than one in a day. It's actually at almost the exact same time into the video as I lost my voice on the last one, just under an hour. Oh, I was supposed to do an entire another game in this video. Okay, well, this will be awkward. Either way, the decision point here was, instead of dominating this Bolton shot, I'm going to go to have a Bolton shot on top of the deck. Or sorry, a Bolton shot in my arsenal at the start of my next turn, which I think is slightly more valuable. Oh, I forgot I had 2 floating. So he did get 2 cards out of his hand. He has Tunic up. And the problem with... See, I was talking about that all and forgot I had 2 floating. Dominating the Bolton shot was a little bit better, I think. Huh. Yeah, because now I could extend my entire hand and only come in for 8, which probably just gets his like Tunic resource. Block 7? Huh. Yeah, I think dominating the Bolton was better. He also didn't use Rampart in this line, which he probably should have. But I go ahead and just extend the hand for 8. Yeah, the more I watch this game back, the less happy I am with it. I thought I played this game well, but I'm not as convinced anymore after watching it back. Okay, this is a strong hand. This is a strong hand for pressuring, and he also extended his last card instead of arsenaling it. So... yeah, we always take this. So we should be able to leak damage on this turn. So here's a situation where I do this one correctly, I believe, where I hold the Seek and Destroy. But yeah, we just come in for 3, and then we'll Rain Razors it. And then Bracers Seek Red in the Ledger. If he Ice Reacts me, we put the Seek and Destroy on top. But I know I talk about trying to keep an arsenal. In a situation like this, where I'm trying to actually push damage, and he... let me pause this here. Where I'm trying to actually push damage, and he has actively foregone the arsenal. That's kind of my window to push. So I'm going to play out a whole 5-card hand for the max damage to try and leak damage, given that opportunity. Because especially if he wants to re-establish having an arsenal, he's going to have to leak even more. And I want to actually make it so he doesn't have the choice. Because he was on 7 going into that. If I threaten 15... I mean, I guess technically he could go to like 1. But that's not much of a choice. So there's a discussion here to block with, or to use the Bracers for the 1 extra damage here. However, I do still have another Rain Razors in deck, I think. I don't know about my Bolton shot count. We may see me check my grave here, but it's really, you'll need the Bracers on the Bolton shot Rain Razors turns most of the time. So I do opt to save them, because I think I still might have another one of those coming. That said, I leave the Rabble on top because I'm going to be coming in with a large turn here, that he should not have an arsenal after this turn. Whether that's in the form of him blocking with his entire hand, Yeah. Yeah, and so actually, notably here, that was another situation where... Had I... That's actually a really interesting point. I think I was not supposed to play the... I was not supposed to play the Seek and Destroy there. Because the Seek and Destroy all of a sudden reset the Rampart. Which means the Seek and Destroy only did 2 damage and denied my arsenal. Yeah. I think that was a mistake. Because he let the first one hit, I could have just fired the Red and the Ledger immediately without opting or playing the Seek. And then having an arsenal, obviously I wouldn't know there's a Rabble on top, but would be valuable there. But yeah, playing the Seek and Destroy there I think was a mistake. So my opponent blocks 8, which means he's going to hammer back. Interesting. I think I end up throwing all of my equipment in front of this. Because I need to be able to cast this knock. And I can't afford to throw Frostbite if I do, and I can't afford to throw these buffs in front. Which means this is probably going to be knock into a drill shot or a Bolton shot red. I'm just checking my grave to see what arrows are remaining in deck. Because I am very bad at keeping track of that during the game. And in these longer games, it becomes very important to know what those last 8 cards are. I think I'm even worse when watching it back at remembering what's in deck. Like, I have no idea right now. Whereas during the game, I think I had some idea. And so, yeah, I think after a while, I do come to the conclusion... How many staunches have we seen? Decent number. Yeah, it's just block 4 there. I can't deal with the Frostbite, and I can't afford to get rid of any of these cards in my hand. So yeah, it's going to be for the red Bolton. And come in for 9 Dominate. And hope. Hope it's enough. I think there may still be 1 red staunch, but like I can't really afford to play around the red staunch. So you can block 5 there. So now I'm in the situation where do I extend the hand to make sure that this goes through? Yeah, then he has the Earth React. Either way, he's down to 1. And down his Tunic, and he chooses to swing the hammer, which is very convenient that I drew my sink below here. So I'm going to bottom the... So this is where this endgame gets really complicated, because in theory I should know my entire deck in order. No, actually I shouldn't. Because I just used the Knock the Death Whistle. So the only card I know is the very bottom card right now is a Ravenous Rebel. And then I remember seeing when I knocked, there were 2 other arrows, both blue. One's a headshot, one was a Bolton shot. I just drew the Bolton, which means there's a headshot in the next 3. Interesting. I think there should also be a Memorial Ground engraved, I think. which I think is what I'm trying to sink into. Yeah, I need to sink into this memorial ground. Okay, so I think it's a headshot, a rabble, memorial ground. No, I've played both memorials. Headshot, rabble, knock. Headshot, rabble, knock. Is it another Deadeye? It's so much harder for me watching here to like count stuff in grave. No, it's not another Deadeye. But here's where he's on 1. I need to find my last dominate, which I don't have. My last relevant like arrow that I can push through is this headshot, which all I know is somewhere in the next 3 cards. So now... So I guess I could play towards it being the 2nd card or the 3rd card. Although actually, if I play towards it being the 3rd card, then I could know for sure if I miss on the first 2. The other thing to note here is that I think I want to play out... I want to play fire exactly 1 card here, I think. So that I can guarantee dominate the knock or the headshot next turn. So yeah, if I play 1, Arsenal 1, pitch goes to the bottom, I draw 3, leaves 2 in deck? No, that's not right. I need to have 1 card in deck. So I need to pitch 1 card and play out 2 cards? Yeah, I need to play out 2 cards, I think. Right. Play out 2, this goes to Arsenal, draw... No. I need to play out 1 card. Yeah. 1 card needs to be played here. Yeah, because I want 5 cards in deck after my pitch goes to the bottom at the end of the turn. So that I can pitch, load, draw a card, have nothing left in deck. Then Azalea, which Azalea text, it's a weird situation that doesn't come up very often. But if you have no cards in deck, Azalea sends the arrow to the bottom and then brings it right back out and gives it dominate. So I think I want to play out exactly 1 card on this turn. Possibly the Rabble, because I want to just make sure I strip cards out of his hand. Actually, I don't have a way of playing out the Rabble because that's the 4th card in the deck. If I play out 2 cards, yeah, if I play out 2 cards, I'm screwed. Oh. We drew the knock. 6 dominate. Yeah, so it was knock, headshot. He didn't have the earth. So it was knock, headshot, rabble, and I don't know what the last card in my deck was at that time. But yeah, it gets difficult in those late game situations because obviously I also have to make sure that I have 3 block for his hammer. And actually I think the line I went for might have just been better. Although I think I was I supposed to sink? It might have been that I identified that there was a knock in deck, which meant sinking into the headshot would be problematic. So I only wanted to draw 1 card and hope it was the knock. Huh. Also notably, I did not ever use my bracers. Oh, it was a yellow glide. Oh, we're fine. We had plenty of damage left. Yeah, yellow glide path draw would have been great. Off the sync. It would have been only the headshot that was really bad. Oh, that's actually really interesting. So if I knew what my deck was, if I knew it was some order, because obviously I had knocked previously, it was some order of glide, knock, headshot. So there, had I drawn knock or glide, I would have been able to dominate the headshot. So I had a 2 and 3 chance of having the dominate there. So if instead of the knock, I drew the glide, the read the glide path, I get to play the glide path out, opt, and then the remaining 2 cards that it could have been were headshot or knock. If I saw knock off the glide, I send it to the bottom, and then it's guaranteed to be headshot. Or if I see the headshot, I just take it, and then that would have been 8 dominate. So this was actually the low roll situation for that player line, only coming in for 6 dominate. Actually, the low roll situation was drawing the headshot. Details. So there were, yeah, the 3 draws either didn't give dominate, one gave 6 dominate, and one gave 8 dominate. But yeah, that's something I'm practicing and not doing the best at is managing these endgame situations. Yeah, Azalea has a lot. If you know the exact order of every card in your deck, the deck is very strong. And so when you get to those late game situations, you can do some really interesting things. Just takes a lot of practice. And like even that game was... That game was actually relatively quick. It was only about 35 minutes, but I guess I talked about it for like 50. But yeah, those in-game situations take a lot of practice, and I'm trying to get more games into Oldhim because I don't feel practiced enough in the matchup. And you can see even when I went back and reviewed it, I disagreed with a lot of my previous decision points. So clearly there's room for improvement. But yeah, 4 cards in deck, plenty. Let's jump into the next one. So this one I actually started recording like 2 turns in, 3 turns in. So we do miss the very... Wait. I forgot. I hit the drill shot on turn 2. I thought that was like turn 4. Apparently I hit it on turn 2. Dominated drill shot, which actually rain razored. Then he CNCs me back and I lose something. But either way, this is going to be a game played out after I've already hit a drill shot, so that's the better place to be. Let me get that. Okay. So CNC threatens pummel. It's not where I want to be. I also have... It's also threatening 2 Bolton shots and a rain razors. So, even though I feel like I'm in a really good spot after hitting this rampart, this is a situation where it's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I don't think I can respect... I can't afford to respect the pummel here. I think if I get pummeled here and lose... If I block 6 and get pummeled here and lose... probably 2 Bolton shots and 3 arrows or something. Like, it's just really, really bad for me. So yeah, okay, that works. I think I end up just blocking 6 here and hoping he doesn't have the pummel. I didn't have a great reason to think that he had the pummel. It wasn't like he took damage on that previous turn in order to hold these cards. It's kind of just what he had left. So that's another thing that you can often make reads is based on how your opponent blocks. Like if they take damage to hold cards, there's a pretty good chance they're trying to pummel you back or something with a big turn like CNC pummel. If they block out your full turn and just happen to have 3 cards left, like you can't always put them on pummel. That was an interesting block. I think I like holding the drill shot a little bit better over the second Bolton shot. So this turn has a no, this turn gets blown out by an ice react. So like against another deck, this turn would be Bolton shot, Rain Razors, Tunic, Load Bolton shot, Fire Bolton shot, Arsenal. which would be 11 off of 2 cards. However, against Oldhim, you can't take that line. So the plan here should be try and get as many of these Bolton Shots and Rain Razors to the bottom of the deck, all grouped together, and try again on the next cycle. Headshot is perfectly fine. And I think I'm going to pitch the Rain Razors, Arsenal the Bolton Shot. Because I'm only coming in for 6 Dominate, having a Rain Razors in Arsenal feels a little scarier. Bolton Shot's a little more flexible to play out. My voice is going to be fucked by the end of this. So I think my opponent's debating the Tunic. Alright, they have just a sink. Take 2. I'm fine leaking 2 there. I do just have to be a little bit careful of the crackback. We draw another Rain Razors. So this gets a little bit... It's like, it's either really good or really bad. I'm going to give him my Tunic resource there, obviously. And just the hammer. So I think I want to sink below this Rain Razors to the bottom. Although there is a discussion to try and play out the line there. Oh, interesting. I think I like bottoming the Rain Razors a little bit better. The only problem would be that I've got 2 Rain Razors right next to each other at the bottom. And that risks me bricking later. Okay, so this line was nice in the fact that I got to send the yellow bolt, yellow Bolton to the bottom, then I get to pitch this Rain Razors to the bottom. Now we get to Rabble. And again, even though the Rampart's broken, I am still just rabbling into Sleep Dart the same way. Without breaking the chain. So now that my opponent's Rampart is gone, he is going to be actively using this Tunic for Crown of Seeds, basically every 3rd turn, just as a way of mitigating damage. And it's very efficient, very efficient way of doing it. Yep, and my opponent just passes back. So here I get to dominate, and it's actually really cool that I have the red and the ledger in hand already, or I have the take aim in hand, because then I get to still play out this Deadeye and load a different card to send to the bottom, and then do it. So this gets to come in for 11 dominate, ideally pushing a decent amount through. That's the plan at least. Opponent still goes ahead and does that. Sweet. The Earth reacts. I was really hoping it would be an Ice react. Sadly, that only pushed 5, but still progress. I've got the blue, so I'm not too worried about blocking this. Question is, like, do I... There's an argument to still block it, just to preserve health total. But I would have to block with the yellow Bolton shot if I did. And part of that conversation is I know that I've pitched this big Rain Razors double Bolton shot turn late in the game. So it might have been smart to block to make sure that I can maintain my health total for that stage of the game. So I do actually end up doing a bit of a weird line here. Just a 4 dominate with the on hit. If he lets it hit, I'll probably just send the red in the ledger. Or no, I should still draw. He doesn't let it hit. So we'll need to close the combat chain on this line and hope to draw an extender. But this is one of those kind of setup turns where the goal is to strip a lot of his hand and then go into my next... Yeah, we get to do this. The goal is strip a lot of his hand and then go into the following turn with a 5-card hand where he doesn't get to disrupt me back. And yeah, this is kind of like the perfect example of that turn where he's either got to take damage or not disrupt me, or some combination of take damage, not disrupt, and not get an arsenal. So he does choose the ice react, which was actually annoying. I feel like there were quite a few times where I wanted him to ice react me and he didn't, or times that I didn't want him to ice react me that he did. So I'm going to go ahead and play out this buff. I'm not super happy with this draw. It might have been greedy. I'm curious if I was supposed to like tunic. Maybe I should have tunic loaded and then play the other stuff. I guess I can jump back. I played this line out very quickly and I'm not actually sure it was the smartest. Because this ties into what I was talking about where if I draw into a third extend or a third ender, or in this case a third arrow, where I wouldn't have a way of loading it without using bracers, the turn does get kind of awkward. So it might have been better to pitch Bolton shot. Pitch Bolton, load Bolton, play Deadeye, possibly something else. I could even tunic out the second Deadeye if I needed to, which I would have on that line, then it would have come in for 9. The only concern is that I'm playing out too many Deadeyes, or too many buffs on like a very middling turn, but he's got no arsenal. So actually I think that would have been better, to give up the tunic resource and come in for 9. Because this turn gets very easily disrupted by just the 2 cards from hand. Then it lets him hammer me back and set up an arsenal. And I want to... Ideally, I want to put him in a situation where he needs to give up either arsenal priority. Yeah, I want to make him either give up arsenal or lose damage. Give up his ability to arsenal or leak damage. That's what I was trying to say. Also here, I was supposed to respond with a sigil and just messed up. So we went ahead and undo. So as far as the pacing on this game, he has only leaked 12. 12 of 46. So about a quarter of the way through his health. And I'm coming up on like a third of the way through my card. No, I'm a little over a third of the way through my cards and only a quarter of the way through his health. So this is actually looking pretty bad. Even though I've gotten the Rampart, I think I kind of got into there's a false sense of security in this game because I thought I was ahead because of the Rampart, but I still wasn't actually combining stuff well enough. So this is annoying. A fused Endless Winter under Channel Lake Frigid. So I do decide to block with this headshot, which, hate it. However, this then lets me play this fatigue shot, just pitching the blue. I'm not actually sure if I like that line. Like, throwing away the red headshot does feel real bad. But this lets me go fatigue shot into Arsenal's sink below. E strike 7 should be sink a fatigue shot. It should be Tunic, Death Dealer, load Bolton. Ideally find a dominate. Based on the pacing of the game, I do take the dominated headshot for 10. Obviously no on hits, but it's not the best arrow, but I'm locking out D-reacts right now from Arsenal. And the idea is just to try and pace, because like I said, oh my gosh, he's only about a quarter of the way through his health, and I'm almost halfway through my deck. Like, that's real bad on pacing. Oh, and he has the red staunch. Yeah, I'm halfway through my deck, and I have done a quarter of his health. But on the plus side, I do have that big Rain Razor Bolton shot turn pitch to the bottom. So ideally that'll be putting in work. CNC with Tunic representing Pummel. He did take damage on that turn, didn't he? So, real quick there. He decided to take 4 to send that CNC. Which... Yeah, and the problem is this hand doesn't deal with CNC. This hand would have been amazing if I didn't get CNC'd. This would have been minimum 15. 15 plus Arsenal. With the possibility of going higher. But that CNC ends up being 2 cards for 9 value on his end. And me losing a buff is really detrimental. But like, the hand, I can't afford to give up a red Bolton shot and a headshot. So it was just a really well-timed CNC that, I don't know, sometimes they got it. So now the question becomes, do I try and dig for a dominate? I think this just needs to be a tempo turn. I've lost my health lead. And he's got a 5-card hand. Like this, and I'm super behind on pacing. So like I can't use my health to force damage. I don't have enough cards to force damage. This is looking quite bad. In this situation, though, I do need to just go for high damage lines because I don't have a health lead. I need to make sure that I'm keeping the pacing of the game. So I do take the riskier line. Or no, that line was fine. I took the line that assumes he's blocking, and I was weighing which one's more likely. Is he going to block my Bolton shot? Actually, Bolton shot hitting to find a headshot is bad anyways, because headshot goes face down. But assuming it was a different arrow, it'd be, is it more likely for him to block a Bolton shot or for me to draw an extender? And an extender in the deck is going to be like 50%, 60%, somewhere in there. And the chances of a Bolton shot hitting with 2 cards in hand is probably a lot lower. So I took the safer line. And this line also, as my backup, even if this was an extender, I get to put a Bolton shot in Arsenal after representing at least 8. In this case, it's 12, but at least 8 damage. So the idea is that I could hopefully set up a bigger next turn while getting him to block with a lot of his hand. So we get the first card there, and then we get to come in for another 8, which hopefully gets... Realistically, he probably leaks 2 and gives me 2 cards. I would be a bit surprised to see more than that. There's a chance of the ice react. Could be annoying. Yeah. He keeps ice reacting these Bolton shots that I want to Arsenal. I do have my Tunic coming up, which this is a really big... Oh no. Ugh. All these like 50-50s. I feel like Arsenal was usually correct for him there. This is interesting. Release the Tension loses a lot of value on second cycle. Or third cycle. So I went ahead and the Bolton shot, he was already very incentivized to block. So I felt like tacking a Seek and Destroy on top of it. It wasn't going to hit. Actually, no, I wanted to over-incentivize him to block that. That should have been the Seek and Destroy. Because I want him to go out of his way to block this Seek and Destroy. So that I can E-Strike punish. In this case, I hope I do. I assume I do, thinking through it. Because of the pacing of the game, I need to E-Strike for 7 here. I can't afford to play that much for tempo. Because it's just straight losing 2 damage out of my deck to draw a card. And in this case, the damage in my deck is very relevant. Anytime you're on like a tempo game plan or trying to like pressure, like anything full tempo, the E-Strike for 5 is the play. But yeah, this was a really big swing here actually, because he overblocked it, which again, looking back, I think I still should have thrown the Seek and Destroy purely because I needed him to overblock that, and it was more likely for him to let it hit if I did it the way that I did it. And I didn't want it to hit. So, big punish here. I think this is kind of my opportunity to get back into the game. Because, yeah, he's probably going to have to take 7. Oh, he throws a card. Like, all of a sudden, the tempo flipped there, because I played a 4-card hand and threatened 14. And got 4, I dealt 4 through him blocking 12. So it's basically a 16 value. Okay, what happened here? We pitch load. I see the Bolton shot with the Seek and Destroy. So because I don't have any pitch float, I would have to pitch the headshot to fire this for 8. So I'm going to take just Bolton shot for 7 dominate, I think. The other thing is, this also might be the start of... Yeah. So we ended up having this conversation because I was in comms with him. When I see this Bolton shot, I actually knew that this Bolton shot was my pitch stack. I wasn't positive, or I didn't recognize it until then, but this was the start of that Rainrazor turn. So it's like, I could try and push through this Bolton shot dominate and still get an Arsenal. Like, that's strong. The problem is, like, that Bolton shot already had a plan to go with the Rainrazor. That's the next card in deck. Right? So it makes it really awkward. Like, it's just such a better line to try and push through the Seek and Destroy here, I think. And still get an Arsenal. But it can weaken my later turn. So I do end up sending the Bolton shot here, but it's definitely debatable. It's staying on top regardless, I don't think, right? Yeah, there's no reason for me to abandon that plan. but it's definitely an interesting discussion. And just because of the current health differential not being very large. Oh yeah, I had played the Read the Glide Path. Duh, that's what I was playing. So yeah, 9 dominate. 9 dominate versus just 10 and not getting an arsenal felt bad. And unfortunately, he had the red staunch here, which was really bad for me. Like, oh, I needed that Seek and Destroy to hit. It was brutal. Definitely a bad break. Yeah, and there's the Rain Razors that I was talking about. Unfortunately, I do need to just take that and try and set something up here. Like, this is kind of a gamble. Am I down all of my red Boltons, or do I have one left? But I do really need to find an arrow on top, which I might be trying to look back at my pitch stack right now, trying to remember what is on top here. Because I think this is a blue Bolton on top, actually. Yeah, I think this is a blue Bolton on top that I had pitched, right? Question mark? Nope. Never mind. I don't know nothing. Either way, we'll take this. It's not great. Yeah, this is a very underwhelming turn here. And I think I need to throw one of these Rain Razors to connect it. Huh, this all kind of fell apart. I'm curious if I just sent the Remorseless for 10 and didn't take my arsenal. Because then I would have drawn, I wouldn't have been stuck with that in arsenal there. Maybe it was just send that Remorseless and make sure I maintain tempo and give me an opportunity to play the... Oh, that's interesting. Well, actually, no, the plan was to make sure he didn't have an arsenal here. Yeah, the plan was to make sure he didn't have an arsenal there by forcing through the Seek and Destroy so that my Rain Razor Bolton turn would feel a lot better. Yeah, so he takes this Red in the Ledger for 7, which immediately tells me, normally I'd want to arsenal the Bolton shot here, just because Bolton shot with Rain Razors, having the Bolton in arsenal already is great. The thing is, he didn't block. So that tells me he's got a big crackback. Means I should be arsenaling the Rain Razors here. Nope, I didn't. Should have been arsenaling the Rain Razors here to make sure I had a card in hand to block with. And he pulverizes me on a hand that blocks 3. So yeah. I'm kind of sitting there like I don't know what I do. Like, I can only block 3 and then sigil and then... Yeah, if I did it the other way, would have been able to block 6 and had the Rain Razors in arsenal, but... I don't know. So I do Memorial and E-Strike on top. I think I was supposed to draw a card here. Yeah, I think I was supposed to draw a card here and then play the Sigil in arsenal. Yeah, draw a card was definitely better. Dominate Glacial. Luckily, I have the Sigil and Arsenal, so we don't die here. Technically, I don't even need to throw the Perch Grapplers. I do to play around the Pummel? Question mark? No, I do this to make sure that I have the... I do it to make sure I have an Arsenal going into the next turn as an opportunity for Opt. I don't want to actually play out this Sigil unless I have to, because I want to be able to save an extra card for tempo. This is interesting. I could 11 dominate a fatigue shot here. The only problem with the 11 dominate fatigue shot here is that I don't get an Arsenal. I don't know. Actually, no. I think I should. I don't know why I'm not taking this. I got scared. Well, oops. The 11 dominate, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it doesn't actually kill him there. Like, he can throw equipment and a 3-block and still live. No, I think I should have taken the 11 dominate. So, fuck. Yeah, I should have taken the 11 dominate, I think. Just to try and push the damage and push through the dominate, seek, and destroy. Because the fatigue on hit stops him from doing much more than just hammer. So I would probably lose like my cross wrap to the hammer. But this line's better tempo, but I don't know. It's still 11 value, but I still get my Arsenal. No, I think the dominate, seek, and destroy line was better. Yeah, that was bad. Yeah. Oh, that's so bad. Like, he had the Endless Winter and a bunch of 2-blocks. That was his hand. So he would have ended up having to Endless Winter for 4. And likely he... Yeah, the Endless was out of Arsenal. Actually, no, he would have crowned it away. But he drew triple Insidious Chill. Okay, so just take a tempo turn here. Obviously, I'm under Endless Winter. So I'm just going to come in for 7, get my Arsenal. We're demanding at least a card. The problem is, I think I'm playing a little too tempo here. He's technically down to 14 cards, but notably, I don't know if I paid enough attention to this now. He is not blocked with a single Autumn's Touch. He's been very careful to maintain them in his deck. But yeah, I think that fatigue shot line actually would win me the game, and I really screwed up by not going for it. So I do choose to just take an 8 dominate line here. Or sorry, 7 dominate line. Because again, I'm just trying to connect the seek and destroy to to find a closing hand, but I can't make them connect right now. Yeah, I'm disappointed with this. I feel like I do that every time I go back and watch my games. I feel like I'm disappointed with some of the playlines. Some of the playlines are good, but there's always more mistakes than I'd like. Either way, 7 dominate. Just trying to leak through a little bit of damage to get him in range of killing him with the last attack. The problem is I only have 8 cards in deck, plus the 2 in my hand, and I'm also low enough to where just hammer swinging every turn is threatening. So like I'm on a timer, and it's a very short timer at this point. That other fatigue shot line, I don't know why. In my head, at the time, I was like, oh, he'll just crack back with a big attack if I force through this damage. Like I didn't even process the fatigue shot on hit. He's going to take 1 here and come back with a 4-card hand, and I'm going to lose my entire hand trying to block it. He's under Seek and Destroy. Sorry, I want to go back to this real quick. Yeah, it was this turn. Like, sure, I'm on 1. I'll get back to the sigil soon enough. But we Azalea, play Seek, play Deadeye pitching, Tunic, Fatigue Shot, 11 dominate. Like, I'm getting at least. And the other thing is, like, nothing in his deck aside from Pulverize, which obviously he couldn't cast there. Like, everything else is, like, low enough that I could block it with 1 card and equipment after a Fatigue Shot connects. So it's literally just Hammer. I guess I could have been afraid of Pummels. Maybe I wanted to get out of range of Pummels. I don't know. I think that was probably the point where, I mean, if you haven't picked up from my tone about this game, where the game was lost. But yeah, I think that was a very, very big misplay. But yeah, we go back up to 8, and now he comes in with a 4-card hand under Seek, which means I'm expecting him to use his entire hand, which is the problem because it's hard for me to actually close it. He plays out the Winter's Bite, which always feels kind of weird, but it is really smart of him. Even though he's low on somewhat low on cards in deck, he's trying to get rid of 2 blocks out of his deck, because a lot of his deck right now is just 2 blocks. Because those are the things he's been pitching, and he's been blocking with his 3 blocks. Yep, so there's the Disable, which is demanding at least 4 block. So my immediate response is Tunic, knock, take 3, go to 2. There is an argument for double knock block. It really comes down to what's left in my deck for me to knock, and I don't think there's any good arrows left to knock. I think I should have blocked double knock here. So here I'm trying to remember what's left in my deck. And I believe I actually sit here for a very long time trying to figure out what's in deck. Yeah, and the conclusion was that there was a Fatigue Shot and a couple buffs in deck. So we do end up just hitting the Fatigue Shot, which in the grand scheme wasn't actually great because I have no buffs to go with it. But it's a situation where, as much as I would like to not fire it, because I don't want to fire my last like good arrow. Actually, I have the Remorseless back in deck now. So now my deck is Rain Razors, Remorseless, Knock the Death Whistle as the bottom 3. Yeah, and he's got all these Earth cards now, so like even that 5 Dominate with no Arsenal doesn't leak anything. And here, no Frostbite. Okay, so the next card in my deck is Remorseless. because of what I pitched, remember, it's Remorseless Knock as my last 2 cards in deck. There. I'm sitting here thinking, for some reason in my head, it was flipped. It was like I pitched Knock last turn, so that went to the bottom, and then I also Azalea it Remorseless, so that went to the bottom. For some reason, I thought that the Knock was next. So I was sitting here going, oh, I need to not, or I can't afford to throw the cross wrap because I need to be able to opt. And then I realized it wasn't even Frosty. So taking the 1 didn't matter. And then I also realize now when I go to opt that I just had it flipped in my head that Remorseless is the next card, so I didn't even need the cross wrap. So this is kind of the final push that I've been able to orchestrate, which locks D-Reacts out of Arsenal. Obviously he's going to cast that. We just come in for 10 Dominate. So he's, yeah. And he had the Earth card. So unfortunately he goes to 1, and I've only got 3 cards left. And he jokingly played the Winter's Bite to die to Remorseless, but at this game state, the most I could do was a 3 Dominate. If I had another 3 block left in deck, yeah, if there was another 3 block left in deck, I could block 3/4 with that. Pitch, Death Dealer, Load, Memorial, Headshot, Dominate for 6. The problem is he's got all 3 Autumn's Touch left in deck still. So Crown, Autumn's Touch, and a 3 block still keeps him alive. But overall, a very close game. I think that Fatigue Shot turn where I had the opportunity to push damage and force the Seek and Destroy and force the other thing would have been enough to push me over the edge in that game. But yeah, that's the other Oldhim game I had to show. And that entire game, he didn't have Rampart. So there were just a handful of things that just didn't line up well, like that Pulverize. There were a couple of CNCs that lined up on big turns. I think there was a couple of mistakes in there. Some Endless Winters that were really painful, but overall, still a very close game. I know this ending screenshot is incorrect. He's not at 0. He jokingly played the Winter's Bite. I did lose this game. Let's go back. There we go. Whoop. Yeah, because this unfortunately isn't quite enough. There's the other turn with the Disable, where I decided to take 3 damage instead of blocking with this Knock. I think I should have just blocked with the Knock. Like, Knock at this stage of the game does nothing, obviously. I have no arrows left in deck. So, yeah, so that's what I got for the Oldhim matchup. It's hard for me to say just practice navigating the endgame situation in your pitch stack, because that you can't just practice those, you have to play out full games for that. But if you get the opportunity to jam games into Oldhim, just try and be conscientious of this stuff. If you have the opportunity to record some of your games and just go back and watch through some of these things, it helps you pick up on a lot of things, like I'm doing here. But yeah, that's basically what I have for the Oldhim matchup. It's a tough one, but like I said, I feel like there's always like so many decisions that go into the game that had I made a couple of these decisions better, I think the games are very winnable. So it's one I'm actively trying to practice, because like I said, I think there's a lot of intricacies to the matchup that if you're able to take enough better decisions than your opponent, you can come out ahead in the matchup. But, all right, well, thanks for watching, and that's my hour and 50-minute of Oldhim. Hopefully you learned something. If you have any questions, just drop them in the comments, and I'll try and get to them. All right, have a good one.